Alright, I know you're going to laugh at me and think I'm funny. But there's a purpose for this little song here, and it's because we're going to cover the terrestrial biomes in this video. And the terrestrial biomes include things like the savanna, which you're all used to. Just picture the Lion King movie and you can remember what a savanna looks like, with all the different creatures that live there and all of the different climatic features that are in the savanna. I have lots of parrot stuff because I'm a Jimmy Buffett fan. Here's another one of my parrots here. I have lots of parrots. I do. And this hat is really official naval hat that was issued to us when I was on board ship and we were stationed in Diego Garcia. Any of you that have parents in the military, ask them if they've ever heard of Diego Garcia. It's a small little island. You could throw a rock from one end of it to the other. Well, the width of it anyway. And it's right there in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and we were there for 3 months just sitting there on that rock. It was not a good time to be on board ship. All right, so anyway, we're going to cover the terrestrial biomes, and let's get right into it. I think this begins on page 99 in your book. Let's get started. Okay, so what's the big deal when it comes to terrestrial biomes? Well, here's the deal. There are certain places throughout the world, in fact, almost everywhere around the world, that has similar climate. And if they have similar climate, then they're going to have similar plant life and similar animal life. They're going to have similar species. So we can actually divide the world up into, 8, 9 different terrestrial biomes that have very, very common features. And you need to be able to identify what those features are. So just remember that climate is what affects what organisms live where, right? I mean, we don't have to worry about gators in upstate New York in our lakes. It's too cold up there for gators to thrive. And the same thing is true with other types of organisms. Now, remember what climate is. Climate is the long-term weather effects. So climate has basically 2 features to it. It has temperature and it has precipitation. So what you're going to need to do is learn for each biome the special temperature and precipitation patterns that exist there. That combination of the local temperature and precipitation together with the different species that live there, that's what a biome is. So we've got all these words. I'll bet you've been exposed to these before. I don't think there's much new here except for what I'm going to show you here in a minute, and that's called a climatogram. This map here is in your book, and it shows you just about where all of the biomes of the world are. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and then a polar ice cap. There's 10 biomes for us to talk about, really. So that's what we're going to do here. Notice it's really the latitude that affects the kind of biome that we're talking about. In general, it is the latitude. Here's the equator here. So not a surprise, this is where you're going to see all of the tropical rainforest areas of the world. They're all going to be right along the equator here. And of course we've got different woodlands. Remember what we learned about Hadley cells and prevailing winds? So a little bit above and a little bit below the equator, we're going to have dry areas. So we're going to have something like the Sahara Desert here and something like the outback over here. Right, they're about the same distance away from the equator, so that's where we're going to have our drying areas. And of course, it's not absolutely positively consistent. Here's another dry area here, and here's our dry area, the desert Southwest, the Baja Peninsula of California. And like I said, it's not true all the time. We have a significant area here that is not desertish. In fact, it's a tropical savanna in Africa. So anyway, by and large, though, you can kind of estimate where the biomes are based on their latitude. Here's us. Let's talk about what we are. We're this color here, temperate seasonal forest. That's us here. And you'll notice that we also have that in the northern part of Europe and going up here into Russia. So there's the temperate seasonal forests. There's a couple of temperate rainforests in the world. It's probably almost hard to distinguish the colors here. But temperate rainforest, it's just not tropical. So the weather is cooler, but it still has rainforest-like weather patterns. And that is us in Washington State, Oregon, up here into Canada. We have a temperate rainforest up there. And then we've got this thing called boreal forest. You should think Canada and most of Russia. It's the boreal forest. Okay, let's get into each one separately. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask as we go through these different biomes. Let's talk first about the tundra. What are its significant features? Well, it's not surprising for you to know that it's a very, very short summer because it's very far north. You can tell here from this diagram, this map is showing you where the tundras are. Alaska, and then there we have in Canada, and of course the very, very northern part of Russia has tundra. Very, very short growing season. And the term that you hear a lot when we talk about tundra is permafrost. Permafrost is the soil, and there's a layer of soil on the top that even during the 4-month summer, that soil doesn't get very fertile. And so there's not a lot of living things in the tundra. Now I want to introduce you to the idea of a climatogram. A climatogram shows the precipitation and the temperature different months of the year. You can see this climatogram here. They'll always have two different y-axes. They'll have a temperature side, and it varies whether the temperature is on the left or the right, so you have to be careful and look at it. In this climatogram, the temperature is on the left y-axis, and then over here is the precipitation over here in the other y-axis. What's on the x-axis? The different months of the year, represented by one letter. February, March, April, May, June, July, August, etc. You get the idea. Also recognize that when we talk about these weather features, and this is a science class, we are talking about temperature in Celsius. We're talking about precipitation not in inches, but in millimeters. So we look at this particular climatogram, and I'm going to get rid of the marks on the thing here. So we look at this particular, I have to go get my marker back. We look at this particular climatogram, and we can see temperatures, no surprise, temperatures are rather cold. In fact, there's only a few months out of the year that they're above freezing. Remember, 0 degrees Celsius is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, so this is freezing. You notice there's only, about 3 months or 4 months in the year where their temperature averages above freezing. So that's why we have permafrost. That's why you have a permafrost problem. Notice the precipitation, very low. I don't know if you picture a tundra as having lots of snow. That would be a mistake. Very, very little precipitation. And again, this is each month. So you'd have to add all of these individual, what is this, about 5, that's about 6, about 5, about 6, 7, You have to add them up to get annual precipitation. So that line is indicating to you the average monthly precipitation. So if there's not much rain, there's not much plant life. And if there's not good soil because of the permafrost, there's not much plant life. If there's not a lot of plant life, what are the animals going to eat? Low NPP here means there's not a lot of other organisms or creatures. Now there are some organisms that are adapted well to be able to live in the tundra situation. Those animals are typically ones that hibernate. And you all remember learning what hibernate is. They turn their biological clock way down during these months so that they don't burn a lot of calories. They don't burn a lot of glucose in the winter months. Well, it's a good thing because if they would starve to death. So they have low metabolism. You know, the old cartoons show you the polar bears sleeping. Well, they don't really go to sleep, but they turn their biological clock down so low, they're hardly burning any calories. They need to get all of the food that they need practically in a 4-month time span here. They need to eat and eat and eat while they can during those months, and then that glucose that they store, and they have a great ability to store it, helps them get through these really, really cold winter months. Okay, so that's tundra. Again, you have questions, bring your questions. Now this picture does show some vegetation, doesn't it? Well, there are some plant species that are hardy enough to survive in a situation with very little soil. They have to be able to survive in the permafrost. And they can flower in a very short period of time. Note the 4-month summer. Okay, that's tundra. Let's move on to the forest biomes. And there are several of them that you need to learn. I already introduced you to them. Let's start with the boreal forest. Now this term is used interchangeably with coniferous forest and with taiga. They all mean the same thing. These terms are all used on the ACE and the AP exams, so you need to recall what they're like. When I picture the boreal forest, I think of what the woods would look like in Canada. Sparse trees, not a whole lot of trees. It's not wall-to-wall trees that you have to hack your way through. The trees are rather sparse, so a sled can fit through there. Think Santa Claus. And reindeer, right? These are the kinds of organisms that are in the boreal forest. It snows there, and of course, and it's got a short summer also, and it's not just that the summer is short, but also the temperatures don't get very high. So this is a northern forest. Coniferous, cone-bearing, and a coniferous tree is a pine tree. So you're going to have a lot of Christmas tree-looking trees in the coniferous forest, also known as the taiga. And I've got climatograms for each of these. The temperate rainforest, I told you, is really only in one major place for you to remember, and that's our Pacific Northwest. And then this is us, the temperate deciduous forest. Deciduous trees are trees that lose their leaves. Coniferous trees are evergreens. So these are the seasonal forests. That means the trees lose their leaves in the wintertime. They don't do a whole lot of photosynthesis. So the amount of NPP that's available goes down in the wintertime. Here are a couple of climatograms for the boreal forest, Moscow, and for us, the temperate deciduous forest. Nashville, Tennessee falls in that category. All right, let's analyze these and take a look at them. Notice they have a fair amount of precipitation, not like the tundra. Not a whole lot of precipitation. You can see here, here's the monthly precipitation here on the right, and that is the blue bars that are done here for you, right? Those bars are the precipitation. Notice that these pictures I have here, they have inches as well that might help you understand. So they average 2-3 inches of rain in the winter months, and then here's the summer months. It goes up quite a bit here in the summertime. All right, but it's not a big wet season and dry season. What gives this away as a boreal forest is this amount of precipitation, but then also take a look at the temperatures. Notice that they go below freezing in the winter months. You know, here's January, February, March, and here's November and December. So they have their temperatures go down below zero average for the month But they warm up pretty good. Look, they have a high of about 70 here in July. So Moscow does get a little warmer, but they don't have 80s and 90s. If they do, it's a very, very rare type thing. So this temperature pattern, along with the precipitation, tells you this not a tundra. The temperature might make you think it's tundra, but then the precipitation lets you know it must be boreal forest, or taiga, or coniferous forest. Okay, here's us. This is the climatogram for Nashville, Tennessee, but this is the biome that we belong to. Notice, do we have a rainy season and a dry season? No. And neither do these guys. They have about the same amount of precipitation all year long. Yeah, there was a little dip here in October, but by and large, we have pretty much the same average precipitation month to month. But take a look at the temperatures. Now, these temperatures do not average below freezing in any month. Yeah, it gets cold in the winter. This is 40 degrees, Fahrenheit. But they'll get up into the upper and mid 80s as an average in the summer months. So this temperature pattern clues you in that it's probably a seasonal situation. They have summers and winters. And with that temperature that high, it must be a temperate forest. Also, the precipitation clues you in on that fact. What do I want to say about these biomes? Well, not a whole lot. I mean, what distinguishes the coniferous from the deciduous is, like I said, the coniferous forest has the pine trees. They, have their leaves year-round, and the deciduous loses their leaves in winter. And I have a video to show you. I'm not going to bother you with that. Here I am. Told you I had a lot more parrot head stuff. Alright, so that's the end of the forests, and now the next video is going to start the grasslands, which is really when I should have done the Lion King thing, but what the heck. Alright, stand by for grasslands. That's the next video